Welcome to Recently Logged, where this week we list every kind of nut.
Walnut, cashew nut,
Peanut.
pistachio nut,
Red pistachio nut.
white macadamia nut.
Oh my gosh. Well, here we are, guys. We're back.
We're back
For Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
If you're an American.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you're an American, happy Thanksgiving. If you're not,
I think Canadian Thanksgiving was like months ago. So
yeah, I was about to
sorry,
say.
Canadians.
Sorry to any Canadians listening. But yeah, we're talking about, well, not really like strictly a Thanksgiving movie, but it feels
it's
like
tangentially a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's
about people traveling somewhere and arguing.
It's like Die Hard, you know? Like Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Best in Show is a Thanksgiving movie.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
But yeah, this is one of my personal favorites to watch around Thanksgiving. It's very funny, fun for the whole family.
It's a PG-13 comedy. If you're cool with that, I guess.
But no, it's
It's Best in Show.
Best in Show.
And we're talking about it. Let's tell the people what they need to know about the movie.
Let's. All right, as we just said mere seconds ago, we're talking about Best in Show, which is a 2000 movie.
In the year 2000, baby.
It's rated PG-13, as we also mentioned. It's an hour and 30 minutes.
We gave it all away in the intro.
We gave it all away. We said too much. Its little IMDb description is a behind-the-scenes look into the highly competitive and cutthroat world of dog shows through the eyes of a group of ruthless dog owners.
Ruthless.
Which is funny because they're not all ruthless. The cast features Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Jennifer Coolidge, Parker Posey, Michael Hitchcock. A lot of people are in it.
It's an ensemble piece.
It really is. I was looking. This is again, the casts on IMDb are always like wonkily out of order. Michael McKean.
Yeah.
Chuck, if you will.
Chuck.
John Michael Higgins. Shout out to that guy. And others. Lots of others. There's a lot of people in this movie.
Wow.
It is directed by Christopher Guest, and it is written by Christopher Guest and Eugene Levy.
Wow.
The comedy duo.
The dream team.
I don't know about the dream team, but the comedy duo.
Indeed.
Cinematography by Roberto Schaefer. Edited by Robert Leighton. Lots of Rob names in this.
A lot of Robs involved in the picking of Best in Show.
Composer Jeffrey C.J. Vanston.
Very cool.
Very, very cool. And that's the movie. Do you have anything to add?
I guess it's worth mentioning that like this group of people, like this production crew, collaborated on like 4 or 5 movies together.
Yeah.
And they're all pretty similar in style to this. So.
Yeah, the same group of actors, the same directors and writers with Eugene Levy and Christopher Guest.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's a fun tidbit anytime I think about it.
I feel like this is the most well-known, though. Like, Best in Show is, I would arguably say, the most popular out of any of these.
I don't know. I hear people talk about Waiting for Guffman a bit more often, but, like, it's probably pretty comparable. So.
But, yeah. Interesting group of little comedian actors and everybody coming together.
Indeed.
But yeah, that's what you need to know.
That's Best in Show.
I guess the only other thing is that there's a bunch of dogs.
It's about some dogs?
There's so many dogs.
A lot of dogs.
And that's an important fact.
Big part of watching Best in Show is just seeing a bunch of dogs, really.
It's true. If a bit doesn't land, you have a dog on screen.
You're like, you know what? That's all right, buddy. At least there's a cute dog here.
But yeah, let's get into what we actually thought about the movie. my apologies to anyone if I sound a little sickly. I just recovered and still am on the recovery of being rather sick for like 4 days straight. So it's touch and go.
We're using that as our excuse for not recording last week.
That is definitely the excuse for not recording last week.
I didn't want to sit. We have one microphone, not two. I have to sit like 2 feet away from him to do this. I'm risking my very well-being.
I have, hey, for those listeners at home, I have not been like, I haven't had a fever or anything for far more than 24 hours. I am not contagious. We practice and support healthy guidelines,
healthy production, healthy
podcast production guidelines here in the recently logged studio.
I was about to say, we're acting like they're gonna get infected if you're still sick.
But Robbie, what do you think of the hit Eugene Levy movie Best in Show?
I think it's a very funny movie. That's my hot take. Is that the comedy movie is very funny.
It's a real knee slapper.
Yeah, I don't know. I really admire like the general direction and like just cohesion overall as like a creative project. Like it works really well, like atmospherically, surprisingly. Like a lot of the handheld stuff is, I don't know, it has a very unique feel that I feel like is kind of hard to pull off in comedies. Like the mockumentary style, which was like, you know, generally most people know it for like something like The Office or something like that. But I think it's handled here even better, like in form, you know, like the intercutting between the different plot threads and just the general way like the movie moves and feels is great. I like it a lot.
Nice.
And again, I really enjoy the ensemble. I think there's a lot of like just really great all-time bits, quite frankly. Like it feels like a really fully realized vision of like its comedic premise, and I think it's pretty well paced and pretty funny.
Nice.
It's a good time at the movies, I say.
Robbie gave it a thumbs up off screen.
I was giving it a thumbs up during that last statement. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Great movie.
Nice.
What about you, Micah? What do you think of Best in Show?
I'm also rather fond of Best in Show. I hold it in a warm place within my heart.
Amazing. Touching, really.
It's funny. The first time I watched this was over Robbie's shoulder on a road trip.
It was the first time I watched it too.
Well, yeah, but I didn't have any audio. Robbie had subtitles going.
I was watching it with headphones and subtitles. There was a lot of road noise.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked for us to like split the headphones. We wouldn't have been able to hear anything.
Right.
And he watched, like, he turned it on without me. It wasn't something that he just like was like, no, it's mine.
It's my movie. I'm gonna watch it on my iPad.
But I leaned over and started watching.
It's so
and
funny,
ended up like being like glued to the screen, laughing out loud while not like getting any of the audio, because like even without being able to hear it, like the jokes are just really funny.
Right.
The camera work really works. The performances really work. There's a ton of physicality when it comes to all of the performances.
Right.
And yeah, it totally, like, you were very much right in what you were saying. It's got such a nice feel, such a nice atmosphere to the movie. Kind of a cozy feel, which it captures, like, surprisingly well. A lot of mockumentaries, especially in a post office kind of thing, and really like a full, like, modern digital kind of sense, I feel like don't work as well, because there's such a thin veil between the line of like documentary filmmaking and like normal filmmaking. They're practically indistinguishable. And whereas that wasn't always the case for documentaries.
Yeah, like I would argue the like popularization
TV
of like independent produced video, like YouTube stuff has become so much more popularized in like people's minds. Like making a documentary now is like, oh, it's like an expensive YouTube video.
Yeah. But like
very different vibe.
I was about to say, but with this being made in 2000, like it still has this really nice, and it's not trying to go for like a big, like huge production, like avant-garde kind of documentary. It's very much tapping into that with like play on TV kind of documentary style. And that's so nice. It captures that feeling so well. There's so many just like locations that I really like in this movie, and that's something really unique. Anyway, I'm talking way too long for my
your basic facts.
I'm just kind of riffing off of what you were saying too. But I think this movie is hilarious. I love most of the performances in this. I love most of the jokes in this. There are very few that don't hit, very few that have aged weird.
Yeah.
Which is hard with a comedy from this era.
Considering that it's 2 decades old and
Yeah.
it's as like diversely populated as it is.
Is funny.
Yeah.
But I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, which I thought for once in the podcasting life, I would do it to where I would cut a lower score than Robbie. But then this time around, he was like, "No, I'm not gonna give it a 5 this time. I'm gonna drop it to a 4 to make it look like you love the movie so much more."
Well, I've given it 4.5s on I think my 2 previous viewings.
I think it's a 4.5.
Yeah. And like since I'm not doing half stars anymore, I just don't think it's quite at a 5 for me. Like, and I'll explain that more obviously.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if I felt more comfortable with a 4 this time around.
I don't blame you. I just thought that was funny.
I think comedies especially. I've watched it with different people each time I've seen it, and like comedic movies are always such a drastically different experience depending on how you watch them.
For sure.
And I watched it solo the first time essentially, and then
I was leaning over your shoulder.
and then I watched it with you and our mom the second time,
yeah.
and then we just watched it with our whole family right before we recorded this.
Which showing it to our sister was very funny. It's like partially up her alley in comedy, and then partially like I don't know, she reacts very funny to like, oh, it's almost in the vein of like a Christmas Story kind of humor, where
like
at
people
certain
screaming
points,
at
like,
each
people
other.
screaming at each other, and lots of like cringe, like
cringe comedy
situations.
Yeah.
Which was very funny to see her reactions to it.
Dude, so much of the latter half of this movie, and arguably the whole movie, is like just cringe comedy straight up.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it's going for,
Yeah.
which can be like hard to pull off.
Right? It can be hard to
consistently.
stomach, yeah.
Yeah, and make it actually a pleasant experience. But this does it pretty well.
Yeah.
Do you have a question though, Robbie, to kick us off? To dive deep into those extremely
Into the best
anti 5-star thoughts you have?
Why did I not have a question? I felt like I did.
Robbie.
I felt like I was summoning one for a second. And
Robbie's like,
lost
oh yeah,
it.
this is a really
Oh, this
good
is a
one.
great one. I guess generally, what do you think of how like the film is structured and paced, like with the way?
Yeah.
Because it's like it takes all of these different. There's what, like 5 plot threads.
Yeah, I think
that
there's
it's
5
juggling.
of them, like 5 mains.
And they all intersect near the end. Like, what do you think of that structure when it comes to like comedy and how it's like paced out and everything?
I think that sounds like such a hard structure to pull off. I think it's really something you could only do well as a comedy. Because especially with this style comedy that they're doing, each character is very much like a bit character.
Absolutely.
So by structuring it like this, not only does it keep the pacing rolling, and you don't have that thing. A lot of comedies where it's all like a huge ensemble of bit characters. You'll have this thing where sometimes it'll just be like a location or set piece that just drags on and on as all
they
the
have
different
to
characters
wait
are
for
trying
all of them to say their stuff.
shuffle through their different bits.
Yeah.
And that can be kind of tedious. But in structuring it like this, where they're not even all together at most points in the movie, and even when they are, it's not like they're all like
Yeah,
hanging
they're not
out.
like hanging out. Yeah.
They interact like kind of separately in their little bunches. And by structuring it like that, having them all separate in the beginning and then come together, I think it gives a great stage to allow these characters to just like have a lot of fun. And I don't know, like there's so many of my favorite moments of this are before any of the characters even get to the competition.
Right.
And it's just like a bunch of characters we won't see again, and then like some stupid bits. I love it,
Dude, I think it's a really like brilliant structuring choice for the style of like kind of cringe comedy it's doing, because like if you don't vibe with one of the plot lines, like if you just think one of the couples is like really annoying or something, you only get one scene with them and then you move on to another one, you know?
You know what this is actually super familiar, like similar to? I just thought of that. This is really, really reminiscent of Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that back when you first watched Drop Dead Gorgeous, that it
Yeah.
was kind of similar to this.
Which interestingly enough, like kind of a random tangent that just popped into my head. Because it's structured similarly, Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Yeah.
But not for structure's sake, but interestingly enough, Drop Dead Gorgeous definitely has not aged as well as this. It's a little yikes in a couple areas for sure. Which is like it's so similar though in like style and structure.
That
came
is
out
interesting.
came out a year earlier, 1999.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that's another example though, because despite like some of the aging stuff, I still think Drop Dead Gorgeous is like at parts a really funny comedy. And I think it does the same kind of thing. I think it gets significantly less funny faster in Drop Dead Gorgeous because they get to the competition so much faster.
Yeah, the competition is only like what, 40 minutes of this or something?
Maybe even less, like in terms of like, because the actual competition itself, that's why I think the dog show really benefits what they're doing in this movie. I mean, besides the fact that the dogs are kind of the stepping off point of most of the the characters' bits.
Exactly, yeah.
It's just that it's like such an interesting and unique framework to do any kind of sport or like competition show.
Yeah.
Like you don't really get characters interacting the same way as they do during a dog show at anything else.
Right? It's because like they're not the competitors. It's very strange.
Yeah. And the competitors aren't like something that's like it's not like pageants, you know, like Drop Dead Gorgeous. Like you have kind of a similar thing with the whole moms and then the kids. But like, you know, these are dogs. They don't really have the same amount of agency, which is why you get really funny stuff like why did I just lose their name? The Braces couple.
Like Parker Posey's
Parker Posey's character and their dog, who's just like the poor dog. I hope that dog was paid well for this role. It had to sit there while these two just scream it out with each other in front of this poor dog.
Right. No, I think it's very interesting. Like, I don't know, the more I've like sat with Best in Show, the more I've been like, it's kind of a like part of the reason it's so interesting to me is because it's about like these different relationship dynamics and like parental dynamics.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it's such a like, it's so diverse and it's just interesting. Yeah.
It's very funny, the different couples that you get with the different dogs, and they all bring something really unique. I like that we only have one solo dog owner. And he is the best.
Dude, Harlan Pepper, greatest character in fiction, probably.
Oh my gosh, yes. I wish the Bloodhound would have won. That's the sweetest looking Bloodhound in the world.
Yeah, I had another question like for you, actually.
Yeah.
You mentioned Drop Dead Gorgeous aging kind of strangely. I was going to talk about how this one has aged culturally and like just socially. It's kind of it definitely feels like it was made in like the late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah, oh for sure. Like it's chock full of like weird stereotypes and stuff like that, but I'm just saying in terms of like sheer offensive joke number, there's not as many here as there could be for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and the reason why I think comedies like this can age a bit better than some like just straight like studio comedies do sometimes is because it's a cringe comedy. It mocks like the kind of exaggerated stereotypes of its time.
Yeah.
And it does it in like, oh, that's kind of cringy and weird. Why would they do that?
So it makes, because you have...
It makes it age a lot better
this, and I was really worried the first time we watched it with like the very flamboyant, over-the-top gay couple in it, and I'm like, oh man, but I think they're actually like, I don't know, I think they're pretty funny.
It's so bizarre because like, when I open Letterboxd, I always expect to find like, oh, the gay stuff has aged kind of weird because we get like a gay couple and a lesbian couple in this movie, and like I don't know, most people I know love them.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I don't see why you wouldn't. Like
exactly.
they're really fun characters,
likable characters,
and they're not really like. Very rarely, anyway, are they the actual joke outside of the way that everybody in the movie is like a joke.
Exactly.
It's making fun of them for how they are being weird about their dogs.
Exactly, yeah. No, it's funny. I think one of the top reviews for this movie on Letterboxd was like, it's a anti-hetero couple movie with the most miserable couple in the whole film is the heterosexual couple.
I was about to, literally, though. Both of the hetero couples are like terrible.
They suck so much.
The two gay couples are really happy.
Right. Yeah, no, I thought that was so funny. I'm like, because I think for it being a 2000s movie and it like touching on a bunch of different demographics like that. I think it's interesting how well it's aged, like compared to something that might come out today, you know.
And I wake up every morning and I thank God that this movie didn't touch on race.
Oh, goodness,
because that's one of the things that Drop Dead Gorgeous runs into.
Oh no,
they run straight into. They run into a lot in Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's like kind of middle class white people who are obsessed with dogs being the butt of the joke.
It's such a I don't know. I've watched like a couple dog shows. We only watch them on Thanksgiving. It's such a white thing. maybe that's crazy.
That's funny.
But it really is.
Yeah. But yeah, I just kind of admire it for that reason. Like I think so much of its like improv energy and theater energy doesn't feel like it's aged like milk.
For sure. I mean, again, the reason I think Drop Dead Gorgeous is so interesting because because it's so similar in style and in comedy.
Yeah.
But it really has just aged poorly. It's aged really poorly.
Dude, one of my favorite bits from Best in Show is the like 1-to-1 recreation of watching any sort of like specialized sporting event with a relative who doesn't understand it. Yeah. The goofy announcer guy.
I love him.
Where he just is constantly asking the dumbest questions of all time.
It's so good. I love them so much. And the other guy and how annoyed he gets with the other announcer.
That is literally one of the best bits in
I was about to say, they like midway through he references that he's done it multiple years too. So this isn't his first year at the talk show.
Yeah, dude. And it's stuff like that, like universal experiences of cringe that like make Best in Show such a fun like experience.
I was going to say one of the really funny jokes is when they're at the party and what's his name? Bloodhound guy.
Oh, Pepper, Harlan Pepper.
Yeah, I don't remember like any of the characters' names. And he's the fly fishing thing.
Oh my gosh, he's talking about the different lures.
He's like, now some people think you need a bigger lure to catch any bigger fish. And he just goes on and on.
He has like a solid minute long monologue about different types of lures.
And it's so funny. And that's a lot of the comedy that really sells this movie so well.
The LL Bean catalog.
The LL Bean.
Dude. Any of the couple introduction scenes are hilarious.
Dude, the way the movie opens, that is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
I love the actor who plays their therapist, their couple therapist. He, especially at the end, he opens and closes the movie, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And just his reactions to them is so good. His facial expressions and his line deliveries.
Yeah, good.
Good.
Dude, oh my gosh. Yeah. Did you have a question?
I have a question. What is I'll just go for like a favorite scene or sequence because I'm having issue like coming up with like questions for this style of movie.
Right.
Because they were we
haven't talked about like that many comedies that are like this.
Yeah, because this is so like the scenes themselves and everything are so like a scene can range from like several minutes to like 10 seconds depending on what it's doing and like who it's focusing on, and that's very interesting to watch. And so what's your favorite scene or sequence? Do you have one?
Oh gosh,
you have several.
There's so many to pick from. Like you make a good point because it is intercutting so many different like plot threads. By the time you kind of like get your footing in one and you're like, oh, that was a great joke, it's moving on to another one. Gosh, that whole opening sequence is so funny.
The opening
it really
is so
is.
strong.
It opens on such a high note, dude.
I really love to when they get to the house of the one guy.
Oh my god.
On their journey.
No.
with the why did I just lose the name of the job?
Oh my god.
The negotiation.
Yeah.
That's so much fun.
That is a really good bit.
And like I don't know, I'm so weird about that actor. What's his name? He's in so much, and usually I don't like his characters. Like he's got a very specific kind of character that he plays.
I was about to say he's usually cast as like this very smug, annoying kind of guy.
Yeah, like a very vulgar.
Yeah.
I'm on Drop Dead Gorgeous. He won't pop up on there, I don't think.
He's not in Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Not to memory. He's in the
But
office.
I know who you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to reference him. Here, talk about something.
But yeah, I think that scene, I do like it a lot to a certain degree, but watching it with the audience we did this last time, it had a very different energy.
Larry Miller.
Yeah,
That's the guy. He's in a ton. But yeah, Larry Miller. I'm usually not a big fan of him, but I think he's really funny in this movie.
I mean, he's like perfectly cast here.
He really is.
And honestly, I think like the multiple past like sexual partners bit is actually way funnier than it probably should be.
It pulls off like that's what I think is really surprising is it pulls off a lot of bits like that, even within a lot of like the sexual humor in this movie that I feel like it just shouldn't pull off.
Yeah.
And somehow it's really funny. Like I'm not the like sex comedies have never been like my thing, and
it takes a lot for them to hit right for me, I think.
And like this has so many great bits about stuff like that.
Right.
Which I was gonna mention. Another shout out for just like really funny moment is any scene with Leslie in it, the really old guy.
Oh my gosh.
He's played by Patrick Craneshaw. And I do not know how they got him to do this, because looking at his picture right here, he looks like a very pleasant man.
Right.
He's still old in the picture, but
they made him look like he was about to like turn into
the
dust.
Movie, they make his head look so small. He's got his like upper lip like scrunched in. He just looks so funny.
Oh my gosh.
But like that's a really like there's so much good physical acting in this, him included.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite scene?
It really is so hard to pick. I mentioned that like my favorite sequence is probably the opening sequence still, but I don't know if
anything in particular about the opening sequence though that you would like to like mention in detail besides just saying like the opening.
I don't know, like Harlan's stuff is really sweet, and like all of the different couples like talking heads things about like how they met and everything are really fun. I don't know. It's just a really fun way to like establish all of their dynamics really quickly.
Yeah, it
and
taps
also
into the vibe really well.
Yeah, and also get like all of the like basic setups for each character ready. Like all of their comedic premises are set up.
Yeah, it's a really efficient and fun way. I love like I don't know. I feel like The Office at post Office for mockumentaries, like everybody just thinks, oh, this is just doing The Office's thing. But I love mockumentaries.
Really,
mockumentaries like post The Office have been, I don't know, I think kind of worse for it. I think they got lazy after The Office just because they kind of thought, oh, they could just do this.
You can have someone say something kind of outrageous and then they turn and look at the camera and that's the joke.
Yeah, but there are like really, if you do a good mockumentary, I think they're some of like the funniest movies. They lend themselves so well to just really hilarious timing and jokes and a really unique perspective into like a film world.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you can get your footing in like your comedic footing in a whole different way when you're doing a mockumentary, like when you take on that aesthetic, because people are so like, oh, this it could happen to me, you know, like there's a lot of like polished studio comedies that came out in like the mid 2000s that don't have that feel at all.
No, not at all.
They're like meant to be very like exaggerated realities, which are also fun.
Yeah, they can be
in their own right. But like something about like grounded character comedy is like, it's just so much fun. It reminds me a lot of like improv theater stuff.
Yeah, I was about to say, because it's really fun too, and you get that very improv feeling when you have actors like this taking all of these characters in a world that feels very, very real. It's funny, any of the dog show stuff, like anybody literally outside of the announcer, like everybody at the dog show seems like perfectly normal.
Like a normal person.
Seems like a chill dog show, and then even the other competitors seem like perfectly normal, chill people. And then you just have these absolutely absurd people. They're just like, even Eugene Levy's character, he's got the two left feet.
Oh my gosh,
and
that might be the funniest bit.
Fake teeth.
That might be the funniest bit in the whole movie is whenever it pans down to his feet and it shows the two left shoes. Oh my gosh.
And it's just like I love that contrast and that ability to allow, because like a lot of mockumentaries don't do that. Even like they'll just have it, even again, take like even The Office, there's some absurdity to the characters, but not nearly to this level. Like these are even like to physically absurd characteristics and stuff, which is just so much fun, and it allows these fun like reality bending moments, again, like the whole tons of partners thing with his wife like that. If that was just like
every location they go to, there's like two guys.
Yeah, every location she gets recognized, and they pull it off really funny because it seems just absolutely absurd.
Right.
And yeah, I just loved that.
Yeah.
It gives it such a nice feel and vibe as a comedy. It makes me much more like, I don't know, like eased into the comedy, much more open to laughing at it.
Right. Yeah, no, and the thing is, like, and actually one of my main criticisms of the movie is, like, I really enjoy it for all of its bits, and I generally enjoy, like, its craft, like, the direction, the atmosphere, we've talked about this. But, like, I don't know, part of me, whenever I hit a joke I don't like, I'm like, eh. And then, like, I get kind of bored for the rest of the scene, and then it moves on. Like, it's not that big of a thing. And there aren't that many jokes that don't land for me, but like as an overall experience, I find myself reflecting more on like individual bits than like the film as a whole. Which again,
that's
the
partially
piece,
the style.
yeah, the piece as a whole is like really impressive still. But yeah, you're right. That's like part of the thing inherent in its form, and you can't really can't really dodge that without creating a whole new host of problems.
I was going to say it's not a movie to really be carried on its own like story. Really,
yeah, exactly.
That's not what it's doing. It is, for all intents and purposes, a collection of bit characters doing bits.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just saying because that's essentially all it is. At the end of the day, at least in my experience, like. Anytime there's not like a bit that I fully love, I'm like, oh yeah. This is fine.
There's not too much like overall compelling going on outside of that for sure. I don't think they do the best job of really getting you that invested into the competition side of things, because I don't know. Like, I don't know why that is, because there's really two people I could see you like people really actually wanting to win out of the five of them, and like. You know, Eugene Levy's character is going to win going into it. So it's just not like a, I don't know. It's this weird vibe where like the central thing that it's about. And that's kind of why they need to have that announcer like carrying them through the whole way with bits and then other like interesting bits and stuff as well.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff thrown into the competition, but because the competition itself isn't like... It's not really,
that dramatically.
It doesn't feel like a dramatic culmination of anything story-wise. So you definitely like. I don't think I would ever give this a 5 out of 5 personally.
That's basically my big reason.
It doesn't have that narrative drive, that oomph.
And it could have been like that much better if they had like a really compelling drama or just like.
I don't even think they needed a drama. I think they just needed something like a little bit more like stakes, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Not like they needed to inject more, just like straight up drama.
I don't want the characters to like be character arcing out of anything.
No. More stakes. That's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Could have made it that much more like engrossing and funny, I think.
Yeah, because a lot of my really like big favorite comedies are doing at least something else other than comedy, and I really appreciate movies that are like this. Like I have no real qualms with Best in Show. I'm not like, I'll watch it pretty much any time. But it's not one of the ones that if I'm sitting there thinking about the movies that I really love, it is not like top of that list.
Exactly.
Ever.
That's what I'm talking about. Like whenever I think back on Best in Show, I'm like, oh, the 2 left feet bit, that's great. The nut bit, that's great. You know, like I think of like individual scenes that I really like.
Yeah.
And I watch the movie so that I can see those scenes.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like watching a sketch comedy show.
Exactly.
That just the sketches all tie into each other through a framing device.
I was about to say, which has its own like great charm to it.
Yeah, I love what it's doing.
Yeah. But yeah, that's basically the reason I didn't want to give it like the full send 5, is because I think like this setup and this crew could make a better movie like this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really am trying to think of like what could really bring that together, especially being like, unless you did more of like a kind of tied together cast, you couldn't have them be as separate as this.
That's what I was thinking.
They like, only engage with each other like a couple scenes at a time.
Yeah, they're very compartmentalized the whole movie, and even when they are like all in one space, it's usually only 1 or 2 people at a time interacting. You know? I think having them have more, I don't know, maybe interpersonal stuff might be interesting, like more like I don't know, like I don't know. What am I trying to say here?
No, I know what you mean. Like a little bit
stuff
more of
at
like
the
an
event
engaging
itself.
stuff at the event, giving them
Yeah.
kind of like some time.
Because we get
some
like the
interesting-
party and
some
like
more
a few
competition.
backstage things.
Like yeah, they don't even make the competition. Like they clearly have what's her face with the poodle.
The trainer, yeah.
Yeah, being very much like this big competitive figure.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks she's kind of annoying because like she's clearly super full of herself. And like her dog and everything. And they could do more to like actually have some like I don't know, like animosity isn't even the right word, but just some like fun stuff.
Some more
like, oh my gosh, how are we going to beat this dog?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. It all feels a little too low key for my liking.
Which,
you know?
again, matches the setting. Like, dog shows are dog shows. Nobody's like, even in this movie, it's
we
kind
were
of
just
goofy.
praising how grounded it is, and now I'm like, it's too low key.
Well, it's kind of goofy watching these characters
Yeah.
emote so like extravagantly at a dog show. Because if you've ever watched a dog show, it's all very like, yes, thank you,
Dude. The one announcer when he's like, I'm confident in saying that I'm just as excited as all the people in the stands today, and then it cuts to the audience, and everyone is dead quiet, like sitting there.
Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know.
But yeah,
I'm not a good enough film critic to tell you why I don't love it fully, or offer some sort of solution to like fix the movie, quote unquote.
Well, I think that's really the best thing I could think of for it, is trying to tie together a little bit more of like feeling like there's actually some urgency to any of the dog's competitive ability.
Yeah.
Because we don't focus much, like all of the owners specifically think that their dog is the best, and that's where you leave it. Like they're not really, they don't seem all that worried about another dog or another trainer or oh man this dog or oh man this dog.
There's like a theoretical scene in the middle of the dog show where like they all get catering together or something.
Yeah.
And it would be great because you'd finally get some like actual interpersonal like reactions.
I was about to say you could do it.
You know?
You could do it before the best in show competition, after they've all won like best in their categories.
Honestly, I think if there was like a scene like that, I'd probably give it a 5.
Yeah, and maybe just a couple more things sprinkled in throughout the film, talking about like maybe some anxieties of actual like competitive anxieties instead of like people being like, well, gee, I don't know.
I sure hope I win the competition.
I think it's going to be a real tight one this year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, that's my best Eugene Levy impression.
It wasn't bad. You know, I could tell it was him.
But no, I think that's really the only flaw I have with it, though, is that it just doesn't bring that narrative drive. So even with it not being a super long movie, you do feel the runtime.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can kind of be there and be like, oh yeah. We still got a bit.
I honestly
even if
think,
like every scene is good on its own, like it just kind of, the pacing doesn't fully work with it.
Yeah.
That's really all that I have to say about the movie, though, because I think that sums it up pretty well. It's this fantastic collection of bits. We could go on like all day about the different jokes and individual gags and physical performances. I think you mentioned the knee. Did you?
I did not mention the knee.
The knee is so funny. I don't know how she got her knee to do that while she's walking. That's hilarious. Like, there's so many great things like that really make almost every performance in this movie stand out. Even like the guy at the hotel is like such a memorable character.
Oh my gosh,
I really love him.
Dude, he's so good, yeah.
So I think it's a real testament of the craft put behind this. It could use a little elbow grease, a little oomph,
a little something, a
little juice to make it a little bit step above, to give it a bit more pacing, a bit more tension. But as is, it's such a nice movie to sit in.
Right. I think like my final like thesis for Best in Show is like its minimalism is its greatest strength and its greatest weakness, as like a film.
And it's a pretty small weakness, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. It's a much bigger strength. Like, I think the minimal improv style theater kind of comedy ensemble piece works so well, and they pull it off with a lot of finesse here. It's great.
Yeah.
I would love to. I'm actually planning on, or hopefully planning on, seeing Waiting for Guffman soon. That's the one
I'd
that
love
people
to
have
see-
suggested to
I'd
me
love
the
to
most.
see their other movies for sure.
No, this crew is like a blast.
And this anyway, I don't know, but I gave this a 4.5 out of 5.
Give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's a great time if you're up for it.
Yeah, I think it's aged pretty well as early 2000s comedies.
It'll be
late 90s comedies go.
2040, and we're gonna look back on this. We're like, guys, what were you doing? It's not aged well. Stop right now.
But yeah, let's get into our what we watched segment.
Let's.
All right, so for those of you who are new to the podcast or have never listened this far, the What We Watch segment is a fun little thing we do at the end where we talk about all of the movies we've seen since the last episode, and we give brief thoughts, brief ratings, and this time we're hoping to be especially brief. Because it's been a couple weeks, I think, since we've done an episode.
Yeah, we skipped a week, and we happened to watch all of the movies.
I was sick,
exist.
and I watched like 4 movies a day when I was sick.
Oh my goodness.
So
Get a hobby, man.
I couldn't do anything. I didn't even feel up to playing video games.
No.
I was like, that's so depressing when you're sick and
Right.
you're like, finally, time. And then you can't do
time
anything. I
It's
barely
literally the
felt like,
Twilight Zone episode.
literally, I barely felt like
not
turning
fair.
on movies. But yeah, we're going all the way back to the 7th. It is currently the 20th.
November
for-
7th.
For context.
In 2023, baby.
But we're gonna try and be brief with these.
Indeed.
We'll give a couple some longer shout outs.
Yeah.
All right, so on the 7th, I watched Black Mirror Maisie Day.
Well,
Bad.
I caught the last 2 minutes.
This was one of the most laughably bad episodes of Black Mirror I have seen. There are a couple really laughably bad Black Mirror episodes, and this one, I feel like everyone involved should be embarrassed that they went with this.
Dang, that's harsh, dude.
Like, the filmmaking isn't bad. Bad performances aren't bad. I'm saying everyone involved should be embarrassed that they went with this premise. They rolled with this. I gave it a 2 out of 5. Then on the 7th, Robbie, what did we watch?
We went to the Spring Cinema and Tap House, and we watched an early screening of Saltburn.
Yes, it just released a couple days ago at this point.
Yeah,
in
Emerald
theaters.
Fennell's new film. Fennell? I don't know.
I said fennel in my video. I did a little review
Fennel.
of this. I hope it's fennel. But yeah, Saltburn, a very interesting one. It's going to get a lot of weird press. If you've seen anything about it, I hate the way that they're marketing on this so weirdly.
That's the thing. It's frustratingly written for shock value, and that's like one of the problems with
Yeah, one of the big problems is
But also one of the reasons
it
it's
is just
fun.
shock value.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about it is just how well, despite how like kind of silly and cheap this movie feels in certain ways,
Yeah.
how well Emerald made this just feel really fun.
right. It's a fun time.
It's a really goofy, messed up, but fun movie. Like most of the people in our
feels so
theater,
hollow.
we walked out of it and we were all had smiles on our face.
Right.
But it just, this is not a movie I will ever think about much, because outside of just being like, wow, that sure was crazy that scene was in it.
That was crazy, dude.
It's such a hollow movie without
Yeah.
much to say.
No, it feels very toothless in so many of its like just themes that it touches on, and like the way it goes about telling its story. I don't know.
But there are some great performances.
It looks very good.
This is one of the few I wanted to throw out there for us talking about it a little more, just because I think it's especially of note. But for sure, check out what's in it if you ever think about go
please.
watching it.
Oh my goodness.
Please do not watch this without knowing what's in it. And yeah, do that.
Saltburn.
Saltburn. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
I gave it a
Tentative.
hesitant.
I was going to say very
Hesitant for.
Very 4, because it was a fun theater experience out of 5.
Oh man, hearing people react to it was almost more fun.
Yeah,
than the
it
movie.
was so much fun to watch this in a full theater.
Yeah,
Great vibes at the theater.
right.
Then on the 8th, we watched Whiplash.
Whiplash.
It's one of my
It's
personal
very good.
favorites. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
My favorite Damien Chazelle movie. I also gave it a 5 out of 5.
Then on the 9th, I watched Paul Schrader's Hardcore for the first time.
Working through Schrader.
Working through Schrader, and I had picked this up from Videodrome movie rental store.
Hey, yeah, we went to Videodrome.
That place is cool.
Atlanta's own Videodrome.
And they had this, and I bought it, and I really liked it. I could do a whole long thing about this. I mean, I wrote a ton for my review. Paul Schrader's movies have always meant a lot to me personally, and this one was really interesting, especially being old and the topic that it's on.
It's old.
Ew. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Very cool. On the 10th, we watched Curtis Connor Keeping Busy. It's his debut stand-up special. I've been binging his YouTube videos for the first time this year, and I wanted to watch his special, and it was all right.
Yeah, it was a fun special.
Yeah.
He a little shaky. You could tell he was nervous.
Yeah.
You could tell he was kind of like, I don't know, it wasn't the strongest stand-up I'd seen, but when it did work, it was really funny.
Yeah, his comedy succeeds a lot more in his videos, I think.
His style works so well for editing.
Exactly, yeah. His stand-up style is a bit aggressive for my taste, and not as inventive as I wanted it to be.
I think it's a little immature. Like,
yeah.
It's just like not immature like as in like, oh, his jokes are immature, but I'm saying like immature as in his writing style of stand-up is immature. Like he doesn't have a lot of stand-up writing experience.
I don't know. Yeah, it feels so oddly structured. The ending, like the last half hour is really fun though. I would watch it again just for that, honestly.
Yeah, no, it was really fun. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 3 out of 5. Not a bad time.
Then on the 11th, we watched Akira for the first time.
Yeah.
Katsuhiro Otomo's Akira.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a classic.
I was about to say, I don't know who other Akira there would be, but I just shout out to him.
I said the finale is perfect. That was my whole review, and I will stand by that.
I was really fascinated by this movie because I'm a big, like, especially 90s and 80s, like, anime film history lover. I love a lot of the anime that came out around that time in general. A lot of the really greats of animation in Japan, I think, were working at that time. Mm-hmm. People like Satoshi Kon and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I think this movie is super, super duper cool from a historical standpoint and what it kind of did for animation. And it's got some crazy cool stuff. I didn't jive with all of it, but you can't deny that it's a gorgeous movie and it's got some amazing things about it.
Right. I gave Akira a 4 out of 5.
Gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Very cool.
Then on the 12th, we headed back out to theaters and watched The Holdovers.
Yeah, Alexander Payne's new movie, The Holdovers.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I kind of was worried it was going to be kind of like a aesthetic gimmick film, which I think a lot of people might have been worried about.
I think everybody was worried about that.
Yeah, because it adopts like all of these very technologically outdated like technical aesthetics.
It kind of tries to revolve itself around like a 70s style movie.
Exactly. And it works surprisingly well. It goes beyond that.
Yeah, it's so great. I absolutely loved this. This is one of my favorites of the year so far, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
It's one of the best Christmas movies I've seen in a while.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's so funny, but its vibes fit so well, and it's got such a great, like, intimate humanity to it.
I'm kind of shocked that we got like a character dramedy that's this good in 2023. It feels like such a dead genre.
Exactly. I know some people like one of the reviews was just talking about how this is just a bunch of lonely, messed up, broken people and like just living through their lives and having like funny things happen to them and everything. Yeah. And that just doesn't really happen in movies anymore in this kind of way.
Right. Yeah, no, it's really refreshing. It's really funny. It's surprisingly emotionally effective. It's great. One of the best of the year.
Yeah,
by my
fantastic
metric.
Performances too. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 4 out of 5. Great movie, dude.
Great movie. Then on the 13th, we hopped on Netflix and watched The Killer.
Yeah.
David Fincher's The Killer.
Yeah. My favorite Fincher movie now.
Wow. Yeah. It's one of my favorite Fincher movies. I am always embarrassed that I really love Fincher movies somehow.
David Fincher.
This is like, there's something really fun and tongue-in-cheek about this one.
Right.
It very much feels like one where he's having a conversation about himself and about filmmaking and about like kind of the industry and where we're at now.
Yeah.
And also just the economy and capitalism,
Yeah.
which is very fun.
I feel like this is the one culturally I've been able to relate to the most, which is probably why it's the one I've enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting movie, and I really like Michael Fassbender's performance.
Yeah, great performance, really fun action, really fun comedy.
Yeah, it's a good time,
It
dude.
looks good.
It's
It
great.
sounds good. What's not to like?
Yeah, what's not to like?
I really adored
It's the killer.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I give it a 4 out of 5. Solid time, dude.
Then on the 14th review, what did you watch?
I watched a little film known as Southland Tales, which my friend Van recommended to me and sold me an Arrow release of, which is pretty cool. It's the collector's edition.
Back alley deals from this one. They were passing Blu-rays.
Passing Southland Tales Blu-rays, yeah. But since I had the collector's edition Blu-ray, I was able to watch the Cannes cut, the Cannes Film Festival cut of the movie, which is a bit longer. The VFX aren't finished in either cut of the movie, I don't think. But I loved it so much. It's a very controversial movie, partially, well, probably because it's a very abrasive movie in a lot of ways. I don't know. It's like 2000s post 9/11 pop Americana end of Evangelion, if that makes sense. It's like American apocalypse movie through the eye of like social anxieties and like environmental anxieties, and like it's just so beautiful. I don't know how they did it. It's so absurd, but like the humor lands, the dramatic beats land. I was crying like 3 times during the course of the movie.
Crazy stuff.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the generation that's growing up now, like, and I feel like every generation is going to be like, oh, we grew up in such a time of chaos. But like, especially because of like the big pandemic, right as I was like entering adulthood, I found it really easy to relate to a lot of like the post 9/11 kind of like shaky ground of all of like the worldwide mentality that's present in Southland Tales. And I don't know. I think it could be really relatable to a lot of people my age. I think it's great. I think it's a masterpiece in its own right. It's an unfinished movie at its at the end of the day, but I love it wholeheartedly. Southland Tales, 5 out of 5. It entered my top 100 movies of all time. I loved it.
Well, anyway, then I got sick.
Micah's like, then things got a little sickly.
On the 15th, I watched The Hitchhiker. 1953 movie.
Yeah.
Arguably the first noir film directed by a woman.
Yeah, I was about to say a historic film.
A very historic film. Very cool little film. It's exactly, I don't know, it's a very by-the-numbers noir for me, though. It executes on its premise pretty well, but it gets a little tiresome by the end, because it really only has one thing that it can do.
Interesting.
It's like literally just like 2 guys in a car, and the other guy's like, oh, you better not do anything or I'll shoot you. And then it's that for like an hour.
Yeah, I really want to see it, partially for its historical significance and partially because I've heard it's just a really like well-written movie.
It's very well shot. I wouldn't say it was like amazingly well written, but I still really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's a very like by the numbers, run of the mill noir, but I really like by the numbers, run of the mill noir.
Right, noir is such a fun genre, even
So
if
I
you're
gave
just
it-
reciting the beats of it.
Yeah, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Very cool. I kind of skipped over this one, but I'll mention both the Terrifier movies as one thing. I watched Terrifier, Damien Leone's Terrifier, on the 14th. I gave it a 2 out of 5. I think it is cool for its gore and like its shock factor is. It's still pretty novel to this day. Like it came out in 2016, and I haven't seen something quite as gory or like weirdly off-putting as Terrifier. So I guess I'll give it that. I found it really hard to invest in like any of the dramatic beats of the movie, and it wasn't really that scared watching it, which, you know, like I was like, oh, that the gore is cool because it's all practical gore, but I don't know, just not that investing of a watch for me. And then the next day on the 15th, I watched Terrifier 2, which I was a lot more excited for. It has a bit more of a polished aesthetic. I feel like Damien Leone had kind of found his footing a bit more with what he wanted to do with like Art the Clown as a central like horror figure. And I think Terrifier 2 works a lot better on like every front almost. It loses a bit of the like kind of grimy feel of the first one, but not even really that big of a downgrade in that regard. It's a lot more like thematically ambitious and narratively ambitious. It gets really crazy really fast. But it just tries to do like way too much for a horror sequel. Like it introduces all these different plot threads and like it tries to set up lore for Terrifier and does like all this world building and character stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, dude. It's like it's a bit over 2 hours long and it's Terrifier. It should not be that long.
Yeah.
For what's here. But again, the gore is really cool. The effects are awesome. I like the cinematography. I like the use of aesthetics in this one. And I like the characters a lot more. It actually attempts to have like emotional arc for its leads. So I appreciated that. Hopefully Terrifier 3 will nail it down correctly because I gave Terrifier 2 a 3 out of 5. I thought it was good, but not great. So,
well, I
watched Terrifier.
Also on the 15th, I watched in its entirety The Fall of the House of Usher. That is 493 minutes long.
Goodness, dude. It's insane.
I'm a big Mike Flanagan fan, and I wasn't getting up. I was super. This was like the day I was like the sickest. So I thought, when else? And it's a really interesting show. I feel like I should do a video on this on my YouTube channel sometime because it's a structural marvel, and not inherently in a good way. At first I thought it was going to be honestly one of the best of the Flanagan shows, but I think it plays its cards way too early, and it kind of just, I don't know, it runs into this weird thing where not a lot of the characters are likable. Ooh. And there's only non-likable characters. Like, they're all bad people. And only one of them can really get killed off per episode.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there and you just have, like, just lots and lots of drama with not a ton of mystery. So it does hurt it a little bit in that regard, but in every other regard, it's solid in all the reasons Flanagan stuff is usually solid. It's got great direction. In my opinion, great character work.
Yeah. I think he's a master of emotional screenwriting.
He still has the amazing, in my opinion. I know a lot of people hate him for it, but the monologues, there's lots of monologues here. The cast is really fantastic in this one. I think honestly this might be my favorite casted of any of the Flanagan things I've seen, even though it's a lot of reuse, obviously, of a lot of his casts. It brings a lot of people who I was really excited to see him work with again. And I just think these cast members work really well in these roles.
Cool.
And it still has some to boot terrifying things in it, in my opinion, especially the end of episode 2 I thought was pretty striking visually. And there's some fun horror moments in this. I would say it's arguably his scariest that I have seen.
Interesting. I'm kind of debating whether or not I'm going to give it a try, because like, I don't know. Like, I'm not that big of a I'm not a big enough Flanagan fan to watch like a whole show just for him. And I'm not a big enough Poe fan to be like, oh, well, maybe, you know.
Oh, I should mention that too. Yeah. I was about to say each episode is like an adaptation of a different Poe story.
Interesting.
All revolving around the House of Usher.
Yeah.
As its kind of main story, which I think is really interesting and like a unique thing to do with Poe's work. And it doesn't fully ever capture the darkness of Poe's work, unfortunately.
That's very hard to do in a movie.
But it is really hard to do. But yeah, I don't know. It was really cool. I still enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
Also on the 15th, I watched The Killing of the Sacred Deer.
Whoa.
I had been meaning to check it out for a while. My second Yorgos Lanthimos movie. And I really, really loved it, especially the more I've sat with it.
That's good.
It's a really, really cool movie. I love how like kind of dryly humorous it is, while also being a really striking thriller.
Mike is the first person to ever describe Yorgos Lanthimos as dry humor.
No, that's just the style that he's doing. I don't know how else you would describe his humor in this. I do say like the performances are really fantastic. I should mention that Colin Farrell is really great here. Nicole Kidman, Barry Keoghan, like they're all, even the kids are doing just great work here.
Good child performances.
Great child performances. I love the little boy especially. He's giving kind of like this weirdly off-putting, like more so than any of the other actors. Even Barry, who's like his whole thing is that he's a creepy little guy in this. But their kid, there's something about him that just really throws me off.
It's like the vibes are wrong.
The vibes are so wrong. But I mean, the vibes are wrong with everyone in this movie. That's kind of the thing. Honestly, I think my big thing is that it just doesn't take things as far as I wish it was. I almost kind of wish it was like a full-on horror instead of a thriller. I wish it was a little grosser. I wish it was a little weirder. I wish it was a little bit more bizarre. But as is, it's still really great and really memorable.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it, man.
I gave it a 4 out of 5. And then on the 16th, I watched Superbad. It was leaving Netflix, and I had never seen it, so I turned it on.
That's like my biggest cultural comedy blind spot, I think, when it comes to movies.
Yeah, and it's probably a bad decision to watch it by myself, because especially when I'm sick, because that's not a great way to experience a comedy. And likewise, it was a little underwhelming. I'm not going to say that that's like the end all for the movie, though, because I would love to watch it with some people.
Yeah.
But it still has, even with that, some all-time stuff in it for obvious reasons. Anything with Focal is great. Bill Hader and Seth Rogen are hilarious in this. Michael Cera is amazing in this as always. Really, Jonah Hill, I just wasn't a fan of his character in this, which is a shame, because compared to something like 21 Jump Street, he's really like, I really love what he's doing.
I was about to say, he can be such a fun comedic actor.
And in terms of comedy, like I like 21 Jump Street like quite a bit more than this in general. But I gave it a 4 out of, or not a 4 out of 5, a 3.5 out of 5. Sorry, I'm struggling here for a second.
Micah, you're going on like this long ramble of just movies you watched when
and
you
I'm
were
sick. Yeah, and I'm like, ugh, my throat's all phlegmy. Then also on the 16th, I watched Over the Garden Wall in its entirety, which in this case is only 109 minutes.
Not quite as impressive.
It's comparable to a movie. I hadn't watched it yet.
Go listen to our episode about it.
Go listen to our episode about it. Go watch my YouTube video about it.
We've discussed Over the Garden Wall. And
talked about it too much. I gave it a 5 out of 5. Also, on the 16th, I watched Blue Velvet, David Lynch's Blue Velvet, for the first time.
And it was good.
Like, you're going right on through David Lynch's films. There's only a couple I haven't seen now.
Wow.
And yeah, it was good. It was really interesting. It was really dark, way darker than I thought it was going to be, like just tonally.
Yeah.
For a lot of even Lynch's work, which is usually pretty dark.
Right.
But this was just vile stuff. Which made for a very interesting movie, like especially in retrospect to think back on for what it's doing and how much of an almost like romantic movie it is. It makes for this really interesting, unique, like thematic pairing, like blanketed over this very small town, cheery atmosphere, which again is kind of what David Lynch was doing for a while there with like Mulholland Drive and Twin Peaks and stuff like that. It's very much in that same style.
Yeah, kind of like glowing aesthetics paired with really terrible stuff.
Yeah, but this was kind of like the first really one of that. This was the earliest one of that.
Yeah.
And for it being such an early Lynch movie, it's got a lot of interesting stylistic things because of it. So very interesting movie. Would not inherently, you should check out the content of that one too if you're going to turn it on.
Yeah.
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Then we sat down and we watched Miami Vice.
Also on the 16th.
Yeah, this was my first rewatch and Micah's first ever watch.
Yeah, I'm a big Michael Mann fan. Robbie's a big Michael Mann fan.
Big man fan.
A man. I'm a man myself.
But yeah, Miami Vice, I claim it to be my favorite Michael Mann movie, even though it is such like a strange outlier amongst the Mann movies I've seen.
Well, that's the thing, is it's so stylistically Michael Mann. Everything about this is yelling Michael Mann's name in your face.
It goes so hard into his like trappings stylistically and aesthetically, and like,
but it's just such like it's hard to describe what makes it an odd movie. It's oddly structured, it's oddly paced, it's oddly acted.
I think
oddly
if
written.
someone just wasn't vibing with it, they would be like, "This is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life." And there are a lot of people who are like that, who just like hated it back when it came out. And I totally get that, but like I vibe with it 100%.
Yeah, I think the romantic stuff in it works incredibly well. I think the performances are fantastic. I love Colin Farrell in this.
Love Colin Farrell.
I was sad how little Jamie Lee Fox is in this, especially being
Jamie Lee Fox.
You know, I realized that I said it after I said it.
That's funny.
I'm too tired and recovered from sickness for this. Jamie Fox.
Yes.
How little he is in it with how good he is in Collateral. is what I was gonna
But
say.
yes, yeah. I honestly think with the rewatch of Miami Vice, which I was very afraid of, my worst fears were confirmed, where like the dry parts of the movie are still so dry.
Yeah.
But like I feel like I'm literally soaring when it's doing its like own thing. Like when it's doing its thing, I'm like, yes.
That's really how it goes.
Yes.
And like for me, which I really like Michael Mann's stuff, it ends up I don't get how Ravi lands on as solid of a view of it as he does.
It's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
But
dude.
when it is good, it is really good, and there
Yeah.
are some great emotional moments.
Dude,
in
I
there.
cry. I cried like 5 times watching.
But the actual,
Miami
but really,
Vice.
almost everything revolving around the actual plot is just kind of boring here.
Yeah, I was about to say, as like a crime movie, it's very strange because like not much happens.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just a very odd movie in general, quite frankly.
I gave it a 3.5.
I give it a 4 out of 5, dude. It's so close to being like just transcendent, but there are just a few weird things about it that hold it back.
Also, right in here, I want to shout out Alien Cake, which we did not watch together, but we both watched
We
separately.
both watched it.
And it's funny. Shout out to Chad.
Shout out to Chad. Greatest YouTuber there is, arguably.
Greatest YouTuber there is. Go subscribe to Chad.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. Then on the 17th, we watched Freebirds.
We watched Freebirds.
A Thanksgiving classic, the greatest turkey movie of all time.
The greatest turkey movie of all time?
Greatest turkey
probably.
movie. It's on the poster, Ravi. You can't
Did we do an episode on this?
Did we?
I think we did.
We might have. I don't know. I feel like we've talked about it on here before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Freebirds.
It'll be really embarrassing if we didn't. I would bet money that we did, though. It's Freebirds.
You don't need us to talk about it more. It's dumb.
It's worse than I remembered it
It's got like
dude.
5 outstandingly quotable jokes,
Yes.
and then nothing else.
Some great, like all-time great bits surrounded by just forgettable, uninteresting garbage.
Literally. And I love it for that. I love the
Iconic.
I love the performances. I love how weird it is. Shout out to Reggie and the Great Turkey.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's
oh my
so
goodness.
bad.
I gave it a 1 out of 5.
Dogs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just be
Let's
dogs.
just be dogs, dude.
I love it so much.
my
I gave it a
gosh.
2 out of 5.
It's so bad. Oh no.
Then on the 18th.
Well, I watched something else on the 17th, Micah.
Ravi,
Tisk
you're
tisk.
throwing stuff out there.
I'm sorry.
You gotta assert yourself.
Since I watched Terrifier 1 and 2, I figured I would watch All Hallows Eve, which is an anthology film that Damien Leone made before he did the Terrifier films. It features Art the Crown.
Out the crown.
Art the Crayon. It features Art the Clown as like a central figure
New
that ties all
Crayola
the
mascot.
it ties all of the anthology stories together. And it was not good. Worse than Terrifier. I don't like the guy who plays Art as much in this. I'm glad they recast him for the other movies. He just doesn't pull off like the whole mime clown thing nearly as well. Like the whole thing is like in the other Terrifier movies, like the guy playing Art could just do like silent comedy bits and be pretty funny, but then they have him doing like these horror bits and he's still really funny, you know? Like it's good. I like Terrifier's shtick a lot, and it does not work as well here. The anthology is weird. There's like an alien one in this, which does not seem to mesh with the aesthetics of the whole thing. I don't know. Weird time. Not great. Won't watch it again. But I'm glad I got to see the origins of Art, I guess. 2 out of 5.
Okay, then on the 18th, we watched Krampus. Rewatch for me, first watch for Robbie.
I had never seen it before, and it was good.
It was fun. I love the creatures in this.
Dude, the design work and the effects.
They're
so awesome. They rock so hard.
I
dude.
know, and I know the other there's a lot of other Krampus movies, but like none of them are like technically connected to this one or this production team or anything.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to see like another one of these that really lets it like get out of the trappings, because really what pulls this down is just all the family drama and stuff just doesn't really work.
Yeah, it could, like, that could be a really compelling part of the movie, but it just kind of feels like I don't know. I never connected to it, and that's on it. It honestly drags it down a lot.
But I would love like a Krampus 2 where they allow it to just kind of go crazier with the goofy monsters.
Right? Yeah.
Because that, like, dude, the little Jack in the
Oh
Box
my
one,
goodness,
that's
dude.
so
The
good.
Jack in the Box creature is one of the coolest effects I've seen like in a movie probably
Right.
ever.
Even Krampus himself, I really love how the creature
Yeah.
looks.
He looks great, dude.
And there's just a lot of
Why does
fun
it look
stuff
so
with
good?
that. Yeah, I don't know. They went crazy hard on the production of
It's
this.
crazy, dude. Yeah, Krampus, like I said, from a design standpoint, stellar movie.
Yeah.
I just had a really hard time like connecting with its like just dramatic stakes beyond being like, oh, this is kind of cool and crazy, you know?
Yeah, it's not as scary as I would want it to be.
Yeah.
Its characters aren't as like
Yeah.
fully well-rounded as I want
I
them to
admire
be.
it more than I like outright love it, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
There you go.
Then on the 18th,
Yeah.
I watched Knives Out, a rewatch.
Hey,
I've talked
hey.
about it a bunch. I think we did
We did an episode on it with our cousin,
with our cousin,
actually.
whom we're about to see.
Whoa,
Isn't that crazy?
that's crazy.
One of my favorites, one of my all-time most watched movies. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Very cool. On the 19th, I
Wait,
watched...
I thought it was on the 18th. Never
No,
mind.
no.
I have
I
another
watched
on the 18th.
Okay.
On the 18th, I watched The Blood of a Poet.
Like a movie?
Yes, it's a little French movie,
Wow.
Ravi,
Pretty underground.
From the 1930s.
I am
actually.
familiar with it.
You may not have heard of it. It's a little underground,
Little
a little
underground.
experimental.
It's in the Criterion Collection. I've heard of it. I'm sorry.
But no, I was really interested to watch this whole trilogy.
It looks very interesting.
I
Yeah.
really admire kind of what it's doing. This first one, I feel like I fall in for what a lot of people think of this. Like, there are some people who think it's a masterpiece, but in my opinion, it's just like it's like a production masterpiece, but it's not the strongest as it could be.
As like a film.
I think a lot of its atmosphere just doesn't work for me, and I don't know if it's because of the era it was made in, like the barely having sound kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know, the music.
Oh, it's one of like the early sound movies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That can be really off-putting and
Yeah,
weird.
and the music didn't really mesh with me very well, but man, the effects in this are some of the craziest I've seen in like any movie.
That's cool, man.
The practical effect on the statue that comes to life looks incredible. I love what this movie is doing. It's got a lot of really fantastic like subtext and interesting things to say. Some really cool set pieces. It's really important historically. So what can you do?
What can you do?
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Very cool. I want to watch that trilogy, dude. It looks awesome. But yeah, I watched a film called Gantz O or Zero. I think it's an O. But it's part of the like movie series Gantz, which is based off of a manga by the same name. It's about like it's basically like people die, they come back, and they're forced to fight like monsters in like a video game style thing against their will. And it's kind of cool. I watched it because I was looking for mocap movies. I just like aesthetically am really interested to watch more like 100% like fully digital 3D animated mocap movies. And this was one of them. I don't know. It looks good. I actually really admire like how it's shot and blocked generally, but I just could not get emotionally invested in it. I have a feeling there was one of the top reviews for this by Seth Brundlefly on Letterboxd.
Brundlefly.
He says this is the kind of anime that non-anime purveyors assume all anime is like. It like objectifies women. It's like very like in your face, like, oh, this is so cool, isn't it? Like, yeah, it has all of its like weird toxic masculinity tropes and action tropes. Which they're not as off-putting as they could be, but it does drag down my enjoyment of it quite a bit. And like the whole like twist of the movie, there's a twist ending, by the way. The whole twist of the movie like feels very self-congratulatory and like, oh, that was so cool, don't you think? I don't know. It reads like a 17-year-old like wrote the coolest action movie they could think of, and it's really lame.
Regrettably, a lot of anime does come off that way.
Yeah, not a fan. It looks pretty cool though. I'm glad I watched it if it was just for like its aesthetics and stuff. So I gave it a 2 out of 5. Not a fan.
Yeah. Then on the 19th, I
golly, you watched a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I still watched a lot more. On the 19th, I watched Petite Maman,
Yeah.
2021 movie, directed by Celine Sciamma. I don't know how to say her name.
I have not looked it up, unfortunately.
Director of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is
Yeah.
like one of like the best movies
My
I've
goodness,
seen.
I need to watch that.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire is crazy. And Petite Maman is a really sweet little movie. Like it's not what I was expecting coming off of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but yet it very much is. Like you could tell it's the same director. It's done in that same very intimate style. She's incredible with like very soft, intimate camera work and like using the camera to get into like these amazing headspaces.
That's hard to do, man.
The cinematography is fantastic. I love her use of framing in both of these movies, and she's a master filmmaker by all accounts, in my opinion. But this one's definitely just like it's very low budget. I feel like and like
that's the vibe I get from it. Is like, okay, we made Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Now we're gonna take it down a notch. Let's just settle down a bit.
And it's just like it's doing a very simple thing. I have like very few qualms with it. The sisters as the leads, they don't play sisters, but they are sisters. They're both really fantastic. I'm glad they got to. They found like sisters who could act. But yeah, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. Like I said in my review, I was like, I could have given a 5 out of 5. It just wasn't like my personal favorite thing, just for no particular reason.
You couldn't quite put your finger on why.
I mean, no, it's just not like a story that's particularly made for me.
That's true.
I was just like, it's not my personal like go-to thing, but it's fantastic.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I really need to see one of her movies.
Then on the 19th, I rewatched The Killer, watched it with my mom.
Nice.
Then on the 19th, we sat down with our mom as well, who did not watch this previously when we watched it, and we watched FNAF.
The Five Nights at Freddy's movie, baby. It's the movie that defined a generation, arguably.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
It's still bad.
Yeah, we talked about it back when we first watched it.
Still
it's not
boring.
good. It puts effort into all of the wrong things, arguably.
It's so boring.
It's just so dull. Oh my goodness.
They could have made it so interesting. Like nobody comes out of like Willy's Wonderland and just like that wasn't interesting. They're like it's bad, but at least it's interesting,
right? Oh man, yeah, we could do a whole episode on FNAF. Quite frankly,
sure.
Yeah.
I gave it a 2 out of 5.
I also gave it a 2 out of 5. Not a fan.
Then on the 20th, this very day,
whoa,
I watched Blade Runner 2049.
Dude.
And on
a Letterboxd classic.
On this rewatch, it's got me thinking, honestly, this is like one of the best movies ever made.
It's the most film bro thing you could say.
I know, but like literally every time I've watched it, I've gotten more into what it's doing and more impressed by its rhythm and pacing.
I need to rewatch it, dude.
Its cinematography is gorgeous, and just what it decides to do with its story, especially as a legacy sequel, is just brilliant and intimate. And like it's this sweet thing without feeling stuck up towards its characters. It doesn't feel like it's just leeching off of the first movie, yet it has really nice connection and build on it. And I love
a good sequel.
I love the performances. It's a good sequel, and I love. Dude, the ending of the movie is crazy.
Yeah, I need to watch it again when I'm not like half falling asleep during it.
Yeah, I showed it to Robbie when we were pulling it.
It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I'm barely awake at this point, but I really liked the vibe.
I put it on my review this time that I would almost qualify it as kind of like a spiritual experience for what it asks about, like questions about humanity and the human soul and everything.
There you go.
Very cool. 5 out of 5.
Wow, who would have thought it?
Then I watched earlier today, Me Before You. Bad movie. It's not like a bad movie. There's some
not a poorly
decent
made
filmmaking
necessarily.
Yeah,
well.
There's some decent filmmaking. There's some fun performances, and when it lets itself just be a quirky little rom-com, I found myself like getting tricked to be like, oh yeah, this is great.
Emotional manipulation.
Manipulation. But man, it's just I can't get over how ableist and disgusting it feels. I mean, that's what 90% of if you go on the Letterboxd, despite its average being a 3.3 swaying high.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Most of the top reviews are tearing it to shreds for exactly the thing they should. There are also, if you look them up online, there's some pretty great reviews from actual disabled people about the movie. It's rough. It's really bad towards the disabled community.
Yeah, not something I would elect to watch.
But I watched it. I watched it with Haley. She showed it to me.
Hey, there you go.
And she's right. It is like it tries to be sweet. They have Amelia
there
Clarke,
was an attempt,
and she's really
I like Amelia
sweet.
Clarke. Yeah,
and Sam Claflin is sweet, but this movie is not. It is sour.
Wow.
I gave it a 2 out of 5.
There you go. And then we watched Best in Show.
We watched Best in Show.
Mere minutes before coming down here and recording.
Yeah.
Which we've now talked about the other stuff we watched just as long as we talked about Best in Show.
Jeez.
But that's what we watched this week.
And last week.
Hopefully you guys, if you're in the old USA, have a pleasant Thanksgiving.
As pleasant
as you can.
In the old USA, just have a good week.
Have a good week. Yeah. Watch some autumnal movies.
Yeah.
I say go watch Over the Garden Wall.
Over the Garden Wall. And go watch my YouTube video on Over the Garden Wall.
Maybe Knives Out.
Knives Out for sure.
Maybe.
And perhaps a Krampus.
Dude, go watch The Holdovers.
The Killer.
Actually.
The Holdovers. Petite Maman. I shouted out a bunch. Akira. Whiplash.
Oh man.
Just throwing stuff out there.
Yeah, go watch a good movie. Basically, is the takeaway. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Yeah.